7 days for Paris-based correspondents 1 hour with us Craig Capitis of Quartz in the Atlantic Group, Vivian Walt of Time Magazine, Régis Le Sommier of French news magazine Paris Match, and also joining us Sorav Jha, contributor to World Politics Review. Thank you for being with us. The World this week, where you can always join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag TWTW. We're going to begin with what this Friday was breaking news. The French president confirming that there are French troops in Mali. This is Mali's government has announced a state of emergency. François Hollande making a brief statement this Friday.
Armed French forces were sent to Mali this afternoon to help the troops fighting terrorists. This operation will last as long as is necessary. I'll give the French people regular updates on the situation.
And he's also added that he's going to put things before the French Parliament. Régis Le Sommier saying all this is being done under the auspices of the United Nations. How many French troops are there? Do we have any idea and what their actual position is right now?
As of now, we don't have any idea. What I can tell you is this operation has been scheduled, and I was talking to some people at the Ministry of Defense back 2 months ago, and they were talking about January as a possible intervention. So this is something that hasn't been made in a rush. It has been planned. There are probably several options that they're weighing right now, depending on what the location of the hostage is.
Because there are 8 French hostages.
8 French hostages are in the hands
somewhere in the Sahara Desert. We don't quite know where.
Well, apparently there are 2 locations. They're talking about 2 main locations for the hostage. But I would assume that they are planning on trying to rescue them while this is ongoing, but the bulk of the task will be probably to go after those Islamists, try to maintain and regain the town that were taken yesterday. And I don't know how many troops they're sending. I don't know what kind of troops they're sending. Supposedly, I would say that special forces are already operating and have been already operating for quite some time over there.
Already operating, gathering intelligence, but here we're getting reports that they're moving on the town of Mopti, which on the map of Mali is sort of the biggest city above that divide, the north, that since the month of March has been controlled by various Islamist groups.
Yes, it's clearly that's the front line, and it's been developing. And apparently, one town of Kona, I think, was taken yesterday, and apparently half taken back against by the regular army today. There was planes. We talk about 2 French planes being involved in retaking that town and going further towards another town. So this is obviously, a state of war at this point.
Vivian Walt, has a lot riding on this. If on the one hand, you're fighting against, I guess, an unknown quantity when it comes to these various Islamist groups. And as Régis mentioned, 8 French hostages.
Absolutely. And I mean, just on a more global level, the US has also seen this, of course, as critical. What they see is the specter of northern Mali becoming a little bit like the tribal territories between Pakistan and Afghanistan, just a huge, uncontrollable area which would be a kind of base of operations for various jihadist groups that can then be within fairly easy striking distance of Europe, for example. So, or big oil facilities, for example, in West Africa. So, there's a lot, as you say, a lot riding on this, and certainly beyond the French, although the French have been pushing for an international military intervention behind the scenes, the US has been offering quite a lot of intelligence support for a long time, actually.
Including planes, we understand.
Drone, of course. Surveillance drones, absolutely.
Vivian Walt, you covered at great length the conflict in Libya, where it was the U.S.'s partners that went in first, but that made the initial push, but with the U.S. picking up much of the slack when it came to the actual cost of the intervention. In this particular case, this is a former French colony, and it happens after the French president went to neighboring Algeria a little less than a month ago.
As did Hillary Clinton. But neither of them persuaded Algeria, which has the biggest military in the region, Neither of them persuaded Algeria to get involved in Mali. They clearly don't want to get involved. All they've done is basically sealed off their southern borders so that the conflict doesn't spill over into its territory. And I think the frustration and the danger, I guess, for France is getting involved on the ground without the rest of the world and the rest of the region backing them up militarily.
And we have word that there are neighboring forces from West Africa that are going in this Friday. Craig Kopidis, I want to pick up on a point that Vivian just made. It's out of Afghanistan, the winding down as we speak. The U.S. president is speaking to Hamid Karzai at the White House, and into now for the French troops into West Africa, to another area where there's this sort of fear of a sort of Islamist haven.
Let's make sausage here. Show them how we do it. Hollande's statement was very short, very terse, very to the point. He has to go in and get these hostages, and I say good on him for doing it, because sometimes you have to hit people with a big stick. However, there are two outstanding questions here. One, how many troops? We don't know how many. We need to know that, I think, before we can ratchet it up the next step. Number two, he said it's going to last as long as necessary. How do we define necessary? Is this Vietnam necessary, Afghanistan necessary, Iraq necessary? The language here, whether you're speaking in French, German, Spanish, or whatever, is very, very important. You use the word intervention. You need to intervene if you're going to get these hostages out. However, as Vivian pointed out, trenchantly, this is a huge and uncontrollable area. And you need boots on the ground to make it controllable, or try to make it controllable. So I think it's best for now to let President Hollande do what he thinks is necessary and wait for more information to be released. I don't think it does the hostages any good. It does not do President Hollande any good, and certainly not the troops on the ground any good to start second-guessing what's going on here now. I think we have to wait 24 to 48 hours to really be able to assess this in any cogent manner.
Craig Kopidis, we're going to dip in and listen to the French foreign minister who's speaking to the press as we speak.
To tell you more about the context in which he has taken his decision. For several months, we have been drawing the attention of the whole world to the gravity of the situation in Mali, in the north of Mali. Terrorists and criminal groups have penetrated the territory. They have impaired the integrity of Mali. They have introduced powerful weapons. They have their ideology, their terrible practices and financial resources. And Mali, and this has affected these are criminal groups that are operating in Europe and in many other countries. This is the reason why the Security Council of the United Nations has made a number of decisions, the most recent of which is dated December 2012. And this decision requires the deployment of a force called the MISMA, the Mission for the Support of Mali, and a number of decisions have been made to fight against terrorists and to restore the territorial integrity of Mali and to allow it to continue to develop. In addition, Europe has decided to contribute to the training, the retraining of the Malian army. And Mali's neighboring countries in the West African community have also decided to form a contingent. And that was the situation a few weeks ago. But for several days now, the situation, unfortunately, has deteriorated very significantly, very seriously, taking advantage of the time it takes for the international decisions to be implemented. The terrorist and criminal groups in the north of Mali have decided to move towards the south, their objective being most likely to take control of the entire country in order to set up a terrorist state in Mali. That is the reason why the Malian authorities have submitted to the Security Council of the UN and France a request for urgent intervention. The Security Council met yesterday, and in a statement adopted unanimously, it considered that the threat was extremely serious and that it called for a response. This request for help was made by the Malian authorities, and the French authorities have also received a request for air and military support. Given this emergency situation and given the international legal support, the President of the Republic, head of state, head of the army, has decided to respond positively to the request made by Mali and the international community. And that is the meaning of the decision that was announced today and which has begun to be implemented this very afternoon by our providing support for Malian troops. That is the situation at this point in time. I would like to add 2 or 3 comments. This decision is part of the international legal approach, legitimate legal international approach, and it is based on the emergency situation. It is the result of international consultations, and yesterday and today, a whole series of authorities have been consulted. For example, we have been constantly in touch with Mali, of course. We have been in touch with the persons in charge of the West African community. We have been in touch with the African Union and its president and the president of the Commission, Mrs. Zuma. We have been in touch with our Algerian friends, with whom I spoke yesterday. We've been in touch with our Nigerian friends from Niger as well, and most countries in Europe. We have been in touch with Mrs. Ashton and with my colleagues representing the United Kingdom and Germany. And we have also been in touch with the permanent members of the Security Council of the United Nations Organization, and obviously with all other members of the UN Security Council. So this serious decision has been made in response to the deterioration in the situation. We have to stop the advance of the terrorists in Mali, otherwise it's the whole of Mali which will fall into their hands and which will threaten the rest of Africa and Europe. Secondly, as the President of the Republic stated, it is necessary in this regard to continue consulting all national authorities. That is the reason why the Prime Minister will be holding a meeting on Monday with me, and the Minister of Defense will be meeting all the political leaders here in France and, of course, members of Parliament. We will also be available to talk to Parliament, to speak to Parliament, notably the President of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Standing Foreign Affairs Committee, when the government has chosen the date, we will also have consultations with the government. By the end of this evening, will have made sure that the members of the families of the hostages we have in those countries should be informed. But you have to understand that in this very difficult situation, the same people who have kidnapped hostages are those who wish to head south to continue the dirty work. Tomorrow, the Minister of Defense will be at your disposal to inform you of the military developments which will result from this operation. Now I'm ready to answer any questions you may have. Madam? How long will this operation last? As President Holland said in his statement, the operation will last as long as necessary in order to fulfill its objectives, to stop the advance of the criminal terrorists towards the south of Mali, to allow Mali to recover its normal integrity, because this is the only way that it will be possible to implement the decisions made by the international community. May I remind you that this international operation results from three needs: the need for a political dialogue, which it is very difficult to engage in, when 90% of the territory of Mali is confiscated by terrorists. And the second aspect is the development of Mali. Mali is a very poor country that needs help, and there is the security aspect. We need to rebuild the Malian army, which has been trained by Europe, and we must enable the Malian army to recover the ground that the terrorists have taken over in recent months. So the main objective is to stop the progress of the terrorists and criminals towards the south, and that will take whatever time is necessary. Mr. Minister, could you tell us what is the scope of the French engagement in support of the Malian army in the north of Mali? Are you purely providing air support, or are you also providing troops as well? At this point in time, I cannot give you too many details because things are happening at this moment in time. It would not be opportune to give you information that might be useful to the terrorists. I can simply say that all necessary means have been mobilized to meet our objectives.
Pierre-Julien RTL. Bonsoir. Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que vous pouvez nous confirmer que des éléments nigérians
all necessary means being put into place? There you heard the French foreign minister announcing that France has begun to, confirming what the president said a short while ago, that France has begun deploying to Mali. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius say the aim of the Islamists who've been controlling the north of that landlocked West African country since the month of March was, quote, most likely to take hold of the entire country to set up a terrorist state. And he also said that the same holding those 8 French hostages somewhere in the Sahara are those who want to lead the push to take over that territory. Régis Le Sommier, let me just get your reaction. He played his cards close to his chest, Laurent Fabius, when it came to what exactly are the number of troops, what is the nature of the French deployment? Is it more than just air deployment? He's not telling.
No, he's not telling. I think we will know for sure. I mean, we will know in a such as probably a question of days, maybe tomorrow, what is the level of the engagement. We have heard about several hundred pickup trucks being brought by the terrorists or, those organizations that are fighting against the regular Mali army, which was a surprising number. But we have to not to forget that this state, the fact that we have a sort of Mali Riston that has been raised in the central of Africa, is a direct consequence of the Libyan war. I mean, we've all praised, the toppling of Gaddafi, but what have we put in Libya? I mean, Libya has given these people a number of weapons. There's been an outflow of weapons towards these people, and they have gathered in central Mali. They've created, like we said, the condition for a new tribal zone over there, and bringing back actually some threats directly towards Europe from this region, and this is something that we have not lingered too much on. What have we left in Libya? What is the state of Libya now? Not that I, worship Gaddafi, but I mean, weren't we much better off when Gaddafi was there?
The old Saddam argument. Yes.
It may be the old Saddam argument, but at this point, I don't see. I mean, we have left in Libya a loose country with Benghazi fighting Tripoli, entire portion of the country escaping a central command, tribes ruling on their own, in places like Beni Walid, and this state and this war have provided these people who are fighting, we're going towards to war against now, a number of weapons and very sophisticated weapons. That's what I see. So we must, wonder next time we're, cheering for the toppling of a dictator or another uprising in the Arab world, if it's good or if it's bad.
The domino effect. Just very briefly, because we have to take a quick break. Sorav Jah, Mali suddenly was on the radar during the U.S. elections. It was in the debates. Is this on the radar in India?
Well, for the policymakers, certainly, because right now India is in the Security Council chairing it. So this would have come up for discussion. And the other thing is India is extremely concerned about that entire swathe which goes northwards from, eastern Nigeria into the Sahara, because radical Islam with Boko Haram and other entities there has raised its head. The place was known for mystic Islam. But just a while ago, a very old shrine in Timbuktu was razed to the ground by Salafis. So India is very worried about actually the entire African continent.
All right, and it's, of course, a story that we're going to be continuing to follow. Stay with us. You're watching The World This Week on France 24. When we come back, we'll look at some of the other topics that we've been covering during the week, including the build-up to Sunday's big anti-gay marriage protests here in France.
Re-elected November 6th, Barack Obama officially takes office on January 21st. Will he use the next 4 years to make good on the promises made in 2008? What can he do to get the economy back on track? How will he respond to the major diplomatic challenges facing him? Can he restore hope to an increasingly divided America? Join us live on France 24 for the inauguration of Barack Obama in his final term in office.